Hello? All right, here we go. Thank you all for being here today. And welcome to our Kickoff Conference for ICONS, the Independent Council on Women's Sport. My name is Kim Jones, and here to introduce our first speaker at this event, we welcome Mary T. Meagher Plant. Mary is a three-time Olympic team member, a three-time Olympic champion, former world record holder, and has a stunning 24 national titles to her name. Her performances in the 100 and 200 butterfly stood as world records for almost 2 decades and are considered by many to be the greatest performances in all of sporting history. Mary graduated from the University of California at Berkeley, where she earned the title Top NCAA Female Swimmer of the Year, as well as the Broderick Cup, the award given to the nation's top female collegiate athlete across all sports. Thank you so much for being here, Mary. Very excited to have you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. It is a thrill to be here to help kick off this inaugural conference of ICONS. Like all of you, participating in sports brought me some of the most wonderful memories of my life. It opened doors for me, and it provided me many, many unique opportunities. I loved attending my alma mater, my beloved California Berkeley. I would have never gone there had I not been an athlete. I loved experiencing all the diverse cultures I got to experience as I traveled the world for a decade as a member of the national team. And I'm so grateful for the confidence that my swimming career gave me to start my own company at the age of 26. So swimming and the opportunities were just, I just feel so grateful and blessed. So I felt empowered by sports, and I know I share this same feeling with so many of my friends that participated alongside me. And I want a future generation of girls, and I want them to have the same opportunities that I had and so many of us here have had. I believe that girls and women of all ages and abilities deserve fair competition, fair treatment, and a chance to dream of being a champion. This has become personal to me over the last year as I witnessed a male being allowed to compete against women in the NC2A swimming championships. It was clearly an unfair matchup. While participating in sport for everyone is a priority, it should not come at the expense of providing a fair competition in the women's category. Girls and women deserve that respect and fair competition without caveat. Over the next few days, I'm looking forward to hearing from the scientists and people working on sports policy. I'm also looking forward to hearing from some of the remarkable athletes who have come to share their support for ICONS and women's sports. So with that, I'd love to introduce our first speaker, a friend, and most recently has become even more of an inspiration of mine as a tireless advocate for women's sports, an icon in her own right, Donna deVarona. Donna's reputation as an athlete is exceptional, but her work outside the pool, promoting and protecting opportunities for women to compete in sport, is where she's really left a legacy. You thought my career was good. Well, Donna was a world record holder at the extremely young age of 13. She's an Olympic champion that set 18 world records and concluded her career with the Associated Press designating her as the most outstanding woman athlete in the world. Outside the pool, Donna has testified before Congress protecting and promoting Title IX legislation. She was the first president of the Women's Sports Foundation, and she was a pioneer in the male-dominated landscape of sports broadcasting, winning both an Emmy and 2 Gracies. She has served under 5 presidents and acted as a consultant in the U.S. Senate. Donna has served on countless boards and sports committees, including the 1984 Olympic Games Organizing Committee in Los Angeles, and acting as chairman of the groundbreaking FIFA World Cup Women's Soccer Tournament that took place here in the United States. She's currently is a member of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I feel very strongly, as I end this introduction, that it must be stated that Donna is a wonderful person and has achieved so much, not by being caustic and antagonistic, but by remaining respectful, professional, and building positive coalitions. A most remarkable woman. Please welcome Donna deVarona. Here.
I don't know how I'm going to double task, read and hold my paper at the same time. I just want to thank you all for being here, for joining our effort. I look out at this room and I think of many, many years ago when we tried to start the Women's Sports Foundation, when Title IX was being lobbied against, when people thought if women took up sports in schools and got scholarships, it would undermine men's sport. As we all know, men's sports participation is bigger than ever, and so is ours, so it's been a win-win. Before I read my remarks, I'd like to just say that one of the best stories of my swimming career happened when I was asked to induct somebody else in the Swimming Hall of Fame. I had a great rivalry with this swimmer that was played out in Wide World of Sports. We would trade world records back and forth, and lucky for me, my peak happened in 1964. If it had happened in 1962 and there was Olympics there, maybe I wouldn't have won a gold medal. So what I would like to introduce is my biggest rival and one of my very best friends, Sharon Finneran, who got second at the Olympics in the 400 individual medley. And when I was asked to induct her by her mother, I said, well, why would she want me to do it? Because it's her moment. And she said to me, Sharon knows you've made each other better, and you've used your platform. So later on in life, as we all know, we kind of have a common language in sport. When I lost my brother at 52, Sharon called me and said, you're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. I want to offer you my in-laws' home, and her husband's here, Bob. And I want to host like a little ceremony for your family. So these are the threads that tie us together. It's a common language. And all of us, I think, that have been sidelined in sports or have benefited from it want to find a middle ground, a solution. But what's been happening, playing across the press, is there's been more sympathy for the transgender community and not enough balance in reporting the dynamics of the sporting marketplace and landscape. So I am honored to be here. I want to commend Kim Jones. I heard the story about Leah a year after my working group. I do not represent any other group here today than my voice and the Women's Sports Working Group. Got together because of a situation in Connecticut where 2 high school transgender athletes were competing head-to-head against women and were winning. And we decided, because of the rhetoric and also because of this anti-transgender legislation sweeping states, that we had to come in and try to find some sanity in this game. And as we've seen this weekend, we're being pulled in 2 different directions. Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade, and then all of us looking at an environment where the notion of what a female is being erased. And this doesn't just have repercussions in the sport marketplace. Of course it has repercussions in every arena. So I am honored to be here today. Kim Jones, I met her on the phone, and she's full of energy. She represents the parents of the young women that are competing in an uneven marketplace, and she has the passion to launch this group. I was wondering why we got here, And in some ways, I think we've been too comfortable. All of us have benefited. We've let everybody else do the heavy lifting, and we haven't taken notice, and now we have. So I want to thank my colleagues for being here. I want to thank Kim for her vision, her hard work, and for those that are standing up. Nobody likes to be demonized. Nobody likes to be labeled. And so it's just a pleasure to be here. I was giving my talking notes from Kim. I think I followed her outline, so I've written it all down. I am honored because it has been the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and this weekend we also celebrated the Olympic community. Title IX, those 37 words, which were crafted by bipartisan leaders in Congress, simply has transformed our culture. In an effort to unleash the skills, energy, and talents of half our population, those that crafted Title IX knew that although women should and could compete head-to-head in the classroom, that to elevate women in sports, a separate and protected space was necessary. They understood that. It was a bipartisan effort. One of our greatest champions in fighting against the backlash against Title IX was Republican Senator Stevens from Alaska. So it was truly bipartisan in the beginning, and it was truly bipartisan when it came to fighting for this opportunity. If you close your eyes and you look back to 1972 when the law was passed, only 8% of women held undergraduate college degrees. That's so hard to believe. Only 4% of high school girls participated in sports, and those were mostly tetherball or whatever, one of those pole ball or whatever you call it, not competitive swimming for sure. And colleges only devoted 1% of their budgets to sports programs. I do not have time to document the consistent and hard-fought and well-funded efforts that were waged against this law during the 5 decades of progress, but just know challenges remain. Also know that many who advocated in the past for Title IX often risked losing their jobs. So often during my broadcasting career did I hear when interviewing an emerging star athlete say, "I found my dream when I watched Serena or Simone or Missy or Nancy or Billie Jean King or Chris Everett." You have to see it to believe it. In respect to my career as a 2-time Olympian, I know a combination of time, place, and circumstances and having the right coach and parents contrived to help me on my road to success. I found my future in the sport of swimming, a sport that helped build confidence and self-esteem by offering competitive opportunities based on sex-segregated competitive group categories. I recall my first aha moment when I won my first race as a 10 and under age grouper. How proud I was to stand on top of the podium for the very first time. With my next birthday, I was again challenged in the 11 and 12 age group. And by the time I was 12 and winning again, I was eligible to race in open competition against older swimmers. At age 13, armed with the confidence of my 10-year-old aha moment, I qualified to try out for the 1960 Rome Olympic team. I entered the Olympic trials knowing I had met every challenge, had trained with the best, competed against the best. And on my road to my dream, and on the last day of the trials, in the 8th and very last race on the podium, I qualified to compete in the 1960 Rome Olympics as an experience that gave me the strength and desire to train for the 1964 Games. I faced my challenges during the following years, tests that provided a strong foundation for a future of nonstop advocacy for girls' and women's opportunities in education and sports. When I retired at the ripe old age of 17 for lack of opportunity from competitive swimming in 1965, sports scholarships for women were absolutely non-existent. While my male teammates were offered high school sports opportunities and entry into Ivy League and prestigious universities, girls and women of my generation looked at retirement. We had to find funding to go to college. On the Olympic level, women took part in less than a third of the events on the calendar. And the only team sport during my 1964 Olympic Games was volleyball. Forget the marathon for women, women's basketball, soccer, weightlifting, boxing, ski jumping, the staging of World Cups or professional leagues, or even a notion of equal pay. Forget watching women sportscasters. Forget finding a place at the table within sports governing organizations. Forget athletes' rights or an option to due process for voicing of complaints of unfair treatment, harassment, or sex abuse. There were no operating structures or legislative initiatives to address these issues. Transformation was brought about through the leadership, networking, and vision. I am grateful that my many significant mentors, such as the one and only Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who created the Global Special Olympics program, came into my life at a time I was able to use my visibility as an Olympic champion and broadcaster to influence change for women and for Olympic athletes. I am grateful for ABC's elevation of women athletes and Olympic champions through their award-winning games coverage, as well as Wide World of Sports, that anthology series would put a spotlight on such iconic athletes such as Peggy Fleming, Dorothy Hamill, and more. These athletes, as well as many others who never benefited from Title IX, joined in a campaign to establish the Women's Sports Foundation. We, like now, needed our own organization to fund research, celebrate and elevate girls and women in sport, as well as protect and promote Title IX. It was a time of conflict, like now, questioning and activism, motivated by my own experiences in the global Olympic community, where one is accepted and embraced regardless of sex, race, or national origin. I took a page from that book. I wanted it to share with everyone. However, my activism for the rights of athletes, for new structures, and our Title IX did not come without a cost. At one time, I was advised by an ABC producer who was barraged by football coaches and male athletic directors that I would have to make a choice. I could either pursue a career in broadcasting, or I could continue to testify on Capitol Hill for the restructuring of the Olympic community and Title IX. Therefore, after covering the 1976 Montreal Olympics, I chose to leave the network and serve as a consultant to the U.S. Senate. Sometimes when you think the worst has happened, it opens the door for new opportunities. No question, when it comes to sex-based rights in competitive sports, we are at a critical juncture. It's time for new alignments, for new thinking. It's time to defend our right to protect our sex-based rights, not just in sports, but in every aspect of our culture. To push back on those who are campaigning to erase any notion of sex. I am a woman, and I'm proud of it. I also acknowledge that there are those individuals who ID differently from their sex assigned at birth. I support their rights to work, to get an education, to participate in sport and the workplace, to take part in our overall community. Given this administration's intent under federal law to equate biological sex with gender ID in all educational institutions that receive federal funding, those of us who want to preserve and protect the women's sports category have challenges ahead. Since I began participating in our working group to explore ways to protect the girls and women's sports category while finding ways to accommodate transgender participation in sport, the goalposts have simply moved. I am conflicted, as all children in school should have access to the benefits of sports participation. Truth is, in our country, one zip code is an indication of who gets what kind of access, what kind of support. With so many health risks in our population because of lack of poor diets and exercise, it's also time to reimagine how we provide for our youth. They are our future. We can do this. As a new group, we can find a way. Anyone who's been sidelined knows what that feels like. But we also know how hard we've fought for our own category. And because of it, we've elevated not only our Olympic champions, because we're the envy of the world, but we found through studies that sports leads to better outcomes. In a recent EY study, which I helped undertake, we found that 94% of women in C-suite have had a sports background, and 50% competed in college. So this isn't just about the playing field of sports. This is about how we use that as a foundation to go on in society and be leaders and productive individuals. So I thank you all. I thank my associates. I thank my new friends, Kim and her founding members of the Icons, and we're on our way. Thank you. Kim, did one open up to questions, or? You do? Does anybody have any questions? I mean, we've got an incredible group of people that are going to be addressing you, and from all over the world. Yes, Beck. Am I worried about? I was asked by a journalist why I would jeopardize my legacy by weighing into the fight, and I said it's the right thing to do. We started saying we want a middle way. We don't want to ban kids. We don't like what's going across the country demonizing the transgender community. And in fact, we have allies like my old friend Bruce Jenner, who's Caitlyn Jenner. And we should listen to Caitlyn. And Renee Richards. When I worked for Eyewitness News in New York, I was the first to interview Renee Richards, and she fought to get into the women's tour, and now she says it wasn't fair. Not fair doesn't mean we ban the participation in sports. There's always, for instance, we have the Special Olympics where we have categories. We have Paralympics where they have divisioning, and they struggle as well. But on the humane side, there are many young people who haven't gone through like the '76 Olympics, which I was in the announce booth covering all the East German athletes who were experimented with, pumped with steroids. Our women didn't have a chance, and they were demonized by the press, saying they were spoiled and they didn't train hard. It was so heartbreaking to watch that. And I will tell you, I was just in Colorado Springs for the Hall of Fame, and that 1976 Olympic team that finally won the last gold against the East Germans, breaking world records, was honored. And Shirley Babashoff, who lost to all the East Germans, got up, and she's still in pain. She didn't recognize her teammates. She just talked about drugs, and it's so sad because she's been wounded forever. And there's generations like that. So when somebody says it's just one, they're not that many. It only takes one person to disrupt the playing field. And sports discriminates. You don't just get to go to the Olympics or the Olympic trials. You have to make the time. And that makes us more resilient. We have standards and we have protections. And so when you ask me about that journalist, one of the reasons why Nancy and I and Martina have been standing up, and Mary now, and Sharon, and other Olympians, is that we know that it's unfair, but we also know that we have to speak for the young people, because one of the swimmers that came to my house, who was on the UPenn team, said if we spoke out, I couldn't even have a dialogue. And that's the problem. When this broke, nobody could have a dialogue without being demonized. We have to talk about it and not point fingers and not threaten. And so I said to this swimmer, us old folks, the people, the adults in the room, we gotta speak out, and we gotta give you the courage to speak out. And now that we're doing that, you're seeing younger people speak out. But they're so afraid. Many of these athletes were told that they would be kicked off the team, they couldn't talk, that they'd be labeled, that they wouldn't get in graduate school, that they wouldn't get jobs. Is this America? So I'm so grateful for this group. I mean, maybe we don't have the perfect solution, but we have to have a dialogue. And that's what happened when I went to Washington when I was lobbying for Title IX. I was in the halls of Washington. I'd wait till somebody came out of his office or the restroom. I'd be, stalking him, and we'd have a conversation. And things changed. So this is a tough time now, but and we've been too comfortable. So thank you for coming together and for giving me the opportunity to open up this new focus. Thank you, Mary, for that great introduction, too. We do have 10 Olympic medals represented in this room. I don't know if I missed them, but between Sharon and Nancy, myself, the boycott was horrible. We've tried to fight against that. We were too late. Or the East Germans. So we know what it's like to compete against great odds, political and chemical. Thank you.